You are live on all fronts. Echo. You're good.
Good evening. This is Commissioner Nevatt, and I call this evening's meeting to order. Present are potential commissioners Megan Dunn and Matthew Ivy. Do I have a second?
You guys can. You can.
Okay, Megan seconded the call to order. Do we have any comments about the agenda approval? Are we good to approve the agenda? Do we have any additional or remove any topics?
I think we're on plot.
Okay, Commissioner Dunn's motion to approve it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Potential Commissioner Ivy seconded that motion. Okay, let's review the approval of the minutes. Do we have any changes from February 20th? Are they correct? Are they accurate? And then if they are, we need a motion to approve the minutes from February 20th. Potential Commissioner Dunn, motion to approve. And do we have a second?
Second.
Mayor, potential Commissioner Ivy, that motion. Now we have citizens' requests to be heard.
You have no citizens' requests to be heard.
Thank you. We do not have any Western design review presently. And it's on to new business, the comp plan update presentation and review.
Great, thank you. So I just want to confirm you can see the comprehensive plan review planning commission workshop slide.
We can.
You can sit right there if you want.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm just letting this nice woman know she can sit right here up in front.
Oh, yeah.
So she can kind of hear and see the whole party.
All right, and so you can hear me well?
Correct.
Reasonably well? And are you guys able to see me as well? I can't see myself.
Yes, we can see you and
Okay.
hear you.
Great. All right, so I met some of you in person last week, but nice to see you all in the chambers today. I'm Abby Weber from BHC Consultants. BHC is working on the periodic update of the comprehensive plan. And I, for some reason, lost my video of you all, and I want to make sure I can see your reactions. So bear with me just a moment. Michael, I'm just going to stop sharing and reshare real quick. Okay, jumping back into presentation. All right, so we're back to the first slide.
Yes.
Great. So this should be a shorter meeting than the last month since we're not doing a full overview of the Growth Management Act and the comprehensive planning process. But if you have any questions about those items, feel free to jump in with those at any time. I can't see you all that well. You're a small thumbnail on my screen. So feel free to just jump in and interrupt me if you have any questions or comments at any time, but I'll try and do my best to remember to pause at the end of each slide as well. So tonight we're going to continue to review the drafted comprehensive plan elements. So we're going to be taking a look at the land use element, the housing element, and then the park, recreation, and open space element. And so you received copies of these with some BHC and city comments in there, I believe 2 weeks ago to take a look at. And then we'll also go over the next steps again before the meeting wraps up. So just again, a reminder of what we've done so far. Last summer and fall, we did some community outreach. We did a survey where we had over 50 participants, which is really great. We asked for feedback on the vision statement. and some of the direction the plan is taking. There was outreach events conducted at community gatherings. BHC prepared the existing conditions research and report last summer. We've drafted the comprehensive plan elements, which are largely revisions to the existing plan, but the updates are based on policy analysis, council budget priorities, and then staff review and comments. So at the last Planning Commission, apologize for my typo there. At the last Planning Commission meeting in February, we took a look at the introduction and the vision statement and the community building element. And what we heard in February is that you all are generally supportive of the plan and that it's fairly easy to understand. There were just a few typos in there. We'll be sure to take a look at those. As it came to the vision statement, you felt it sticks to the core of Roy, what it is, what it was, and what it will be, that it acknowledges that Roy can value history, but also embrace the new. You felt that it's important to honor and acknowledge Roy's history throughout the plan. We love the idea of pursuing like a mural somewhere along or throughout the core of the city. Let's see, so we took a look at the community building element, and you felt that the goals and policies correspond well to the vision statement and seemed generally feasible, but there was some concern about the availability of funding. We heard that you would like Roy to express a welcoming atmosphere and reception at civic events, public meetings, and in public spaces, that all should feel and be welcome in Roy. And then we also heard comments about the feasibility of bike paths on existing roads. There was support for turning public spaces into parks, but also concern about the proximity of parks and recreation facilities near busy streets. And I wanted to put those comments last about bike paths, public spaces, parks, and children's safety, because I feel they're all quite relevant today to particularly to the parks, recreation, and open space element. So we're going to be looking for, not necessarily, like you don't have to be consistent in your comments, but if we can relate them to, we've been tracking all of your comments, we'll continue to track the comments that you provide today and at the next meeting and make sure that we're addressing them in a consistent manner throughout the plan and the edits we make. Any questions?
No.
Right. So I wanted to bring up the vision statement again, just as a reminder. So this is the current proposed vision statement. Roy aspires to fuse Western tradition and small town camaraderie with progressive thinking, thus preserving our heritage while creating a vibrant and thriving future for all. So as you noticed in the reviewer notes at the beginning of each draft element, we asked you all to think about whether the goals and policies correspond well to the vision statement. And that's because, the primary purpose of the comprehensive plan is to plan for the next 20 years of growth and development and to guide decision makers during that time frame. And so the value of the plan is seen when we implement the goals and policies in each of the elements. And that's why the vision is really important. So it's a common thread that provides this internal consistency throughout the plan, and all goals and policies should seek to implement that same vision. So we'll jump right into the land use element. Are there any questions or comments before we get started? All right. So the land use element, it's usually, in this case, it's the third chapter in the comprehensive plan, coming after the introduction, community building, and then we have land use. So it's typically right up front. It sets the path for how land is allocated and used over the next 20 years. It identifies where growth is appropriate and describes how desired changes over time. It assists Roy in meeting several objectives, including considering land characteristics to direct development away from environmentally critical areas and important natural resources. As we talked about last week, the state, under the Growth Management Act, the state requires cities and counties to plan for limiting impacts to environmentally critical areas and natural resources. The land use element helps provide a range of affordable housing choices in stable residential neighborhoods, encourages employment growth and commercial development along State Route 507, and encourages redevelopment of properties that are underutilized or inconsistent with the comprehensive plan designation. So you'll see this when we refer to the comp plan designation or the future land use designation or the land use designation. We're not talking about zoning in that case. We're talking about the intended use of that property in 20 years. So zoning regulates how property is used today. And then the comp plan or the future land use map designation is how you envision the land being used in 20 years. So what has changed since BHC started drafting updates to the land use element? So in all of the elements, we simplified the introduction to eliminate redundancies throughout that section. And we included, in this case, a brief overview of the intent of the land use element. Discussion text from the previous plan was incorporated into policy language or removed to avoid redundancy. And that was, so throughout the previous comprehensive plan, the way it was organized was that there was a goal, there was a paragraph discussing that goal, and then there were policies organized underneath that goal. So we just took that discussion text and did our best to simplify it, minimize repeat language, and then incorporate it into the policy so that it was actionable where it was possible to do so. The goals and policies were edited to remove unnecessary wording. The background information in land use inventory was moved to an appendix. And we tried to do that for each element where we took really technical information, like tables, charts, and we moved like demographics analysis, and we moved that to, and any inventories as well. We moved that to appendices at the back of the document. And that helps create more usable documents as well. And then we also drafted new policies based on state guidance and new legislation. I also wanted to point out that we flagged some existing policies and then also created a few new goals and policies, and that was to meet changes in state law regarding planning for climate resilience and greenhouse gas reductions. And so this is something that the state requires towns and counties to do. And there's the option to create an entirely new element. But in the case of Roy and several other cities that we're working with, you could also just identify where those policies already exist within your comprehensive plan. So as you're looking through the different elements, next to a policy heading, if you see that referral to climate policy, greenhouse gas reductions, or community resilience, that's what that means in there. So we'll open it up for discussion. I hope you all had a chance to review before meeting today. So did you find, as you were looking through it, that the policies are feasible for Roy? Are there any that are not? Are there any local issues that are not yet addressed by the goals and policies? Do you have any questions? Do you think that it's worded clearly, avoids jargon? And do you think that the goals and policies correspond well to the vision statement?
Do you guys have any questions or thoughts?
No, I just read through it before I came for the past hour or two. Trying to recall, I know there are three large sections. I think in the first one I didn't have any, but the next couple.
Okay.
No questions for me. I thought it was written well so that pretty much anyone could understand what it was saying. It was clear, it was concise. I think that it does adhere to, the vision statement and the direction that the city is wanting to go for, the next 20 years.
I did like, the mindfulness of, preserving. I saw something about the term strip mall comes to mind. I read that and I thought that was really good that we're purposely saying we don't want that type of thing. We want to preserve what we have, but also make progress. So I think that's very important to keep the feeling, and that's why we moved here, to keep the feeling of a small town like this.
I'm just making notes. Great. And again, if additional comments come to your mind as related to the land use element that pop up when we're taking a look at the others, feel free to bring those up later.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to potential Commissioner Dunn's thoughts as well. Is the progressive thinking without it becoming commercialized? I think that's the crux. How can we progress, be commercial without commercializing it? To maintain the integrity of what Roy is, but we still have to progress. We still have to grow. We still have to change.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Housing element. So the housing element identifies goals, policies, and implementation strategies that provide solutions to existing housing problems based on Roy's role in the region. The housing element helps further Roy's vision of maintaining a close-knit community that is welcoming of all people, embraces progress, and provides for the changing housing needs of its residents. When we say changing housing needs, we're talking about downsizing, alternative senior housing options, housing that can accommodate young, small families, people that are interested in returning, that may have grown up here, that want to return to Roy. And the housing element aims to help keep up with projected population growth and housing needs. And as we talked about at the last meeting, Roy, I'm going to use the word needs loosely, but needs to increase permitting of housing from currently the permitting rate is fewer than 1 per year to up to 5 units per year. So what's changed? Again, the introduction section was shortened and restructured to remove some of the redundant planning context that was provided and instead focus on introducing the current housing issues in Roy. Most of the policies and discussion text was removed or incorporated into policy language to reduce redundancy. And I think I apologize, I think that's a typo. We didn't remove many policies from the housing element unless they were redundant with other policies elsewhere. So I think this is focusing on that discussion text I was talking about before. So goals and policies were edited to remove unnecessary wording. Background information and housing inventory was moved to an appendix. And then new policies were drafted, again, based on state guidance and changes in state laws. And I should mention that for the sake of an ease of your review, we included those, each of the appendices with the elements, but those will all be moved to the back of the document in the final document. So again, did you find that these policies are feasible for Roy? Any that weren't? Are there any local issues that are not yet addressed by the goals and policies? Do you have any questions about the information? Do you think it's worded fairly clearly? And do you think it corresponds well to the vision statement?
My only question is when it talks about increasing permitting from 1 to 5 houses to more. Roy, we have discussed that Roy is landlocked. There isn't much growth room to, you know, increase the housing. People may have to subdivide their land. So, you know, that's where I see there's kind of like this little issue to, you want to increase permitting, but we can't increase permitting if there's no place to grow and build, you know.
And to kind of piggyback off that, I was looking at in the appendix at all the data. Should I be closer to this microphone? And I saw that the difference in population or projected population and now is something like 253 people. And if you look at that in terms of, I mean, this is over 20 years. If you look at that in terms of 100 more housing units needed, that's about 2.5 per unit. And that lends itself to the other data that talks about the need for low and extra low income housing. So are we talking about, like, if you look at those two things, could it be done with, and as far as the landlocked issue, it could be done with affordable apartments or I don't know the history of the city with apartments or condos, low cost condos, that type of thing. It seems like that would be something to think about.
Yeah.
Again, I
Well,
don't
and
know
I can,
the
yeah, so
details.
I just want to assure you that I can't recall the details of the analysis offhand, but that was a component that all cities were asked to take a look at, was to do a housing analysis based on these different ranges of income level and make sure that there's sufficient land within city limits to accommodate that. And part of that is also looking at land capacity, so undeveloped and underdeveloped land, and then looking at so under the current zoning and the future land use map designations that apply, making sure that it's zoned to be able to accommodate the growth that's necessary to meet those housing targets. And with Roy, it was found that with current land capacity and current zoning, that the city would be able to meet those targets. And so that considers also, you know, whether sites could be, there's multifamily sites, there's a mixed use site, and then what is the capacity of sites that are already developed. So we'll make note of your concern, but I want to assure you that that's being carefully looked at.
And I think we had the same question last meeting, and we went over the multifamily and then some of the land that was still undeveloped as of yet, but was tagged as residential or mixed use. Because I remember we had the same question last time.
And I know, for example, there's a property, I looked at the listing, it's for sale up here, and it's zoned in the listing, it explains zoned for, it is single. Oh, I'm just talking about the Redfin listing. It's part of the.
For the development?
Part of the, no, it's right up here. I don't know the address.
Is it the one that has better?
It has a green sign.
Yeah, the Better Homes Act.
And that listing, if you read it, says, if I remember correctly, it says it's zoned for more than just single family. So don't quote me on that. Pretty sure I can look it up really quick on my phone. But with that in mind, what is to stop someone now from? I'm gonna check it before I speak too soon.
Yeah, well, it's okay.
Excuse me.
The analysis considers the zoning capacity of the different of the land that it applies to. So, but what I'm hearing is that you're concerned that there is not sufficient developable land available to meet those housing targets?
I was just thinking, because this is a private sale of land, that, if it's already,
It was what, 100 development? or
1.5.
How many houses were they anticipating? Over
You're
100?
talking one right down by, between the two developments.
Yeah.
I think that one was 75 or
So-
80.
Well, that's the thing. If you're anticipating growth of like 100 over 20 years, you have to think that houses will be flipped into different type of,
Yeah.
like same plot, but different type of house.
Yeah.
You also have a development that is waiting to be purchased that will house 75 of those houses. So,
and then
So
this
we're
one-
meeting it.
so it's not
This one
difficult
is
to
zoned
meet that.
multifamily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or an
Property zoned.
ADU could be
Anyway,
provided on
just
site.
to put it out there, anybody could buy that and build multifamily.
Yeah. So
So-
I know the concern is like, we don't have the space, but just thinking in general, like there's already
We can
there's already area developed for potentially 75 homes. So that knocks out.
Yeah.
And then over 20 years,
Yeah.
whatever, you're like, okay, somebody flips a house and makes it a multi.
And then this one too, if
Yeah.
someone buy it for personal reasons, if it's an investor, I mean, there's
Mhm.
potential there too,
Yeah.
but otherwise, yes, there's not a lot of it. So
Yeah, there's plenty to meet the projection.
Can I ask a question about, there was a line graph that showed permits, permitted each year. I don't know, I know the specifics aren't in front of us, but, I was just wondering when the two developments, furthest south were annexed to the city or joined the city, because I know ours was built in 96, but in 96, the line graph said there were like a few permits, but then there's a whole 63 houses there. Was that neighborhood joined later to the city? Like after
Mhm.
it was
Yeah,
permitted? Like,
I'm sorry, I don't have that history. Michael, do
I was just
you?
curious. That's-
I don't know if it had to be annexed in, but even just looking right now, when we do get permits on those kind of things, it could be moving, somebody turning a manufactured home into a stick built. Like those are the kind of things that you just have to take into account when they're like, oh, we're gonna put we're adding one more, but you're not, you're just making it a different type of house. So those are just kind of those things to keep in mind. But yeah, I don't know if that area was annexed in or if it was. But
All right. And I'm making note of these comments and concerns, and we'll add them to our tracker. So thank you for that. Are there any additional questions or comments related to housing?
No, I know.
Nothing for,
Moving on to parks, recreation, and open space. So this element describes the goals and policies to anticipate the expanded park system and additional recreational opportunities. And the appendix provides additional information on these facilities, as well as an assessment on the future needs. So what's changed? Again, shortened up and simplified the introduction, removed quite a bit of redundant planning context information. The discussion test was edited down to reduce redundancy, and it was incorporated into the policy language. The goals and policies were edited to remove unnecessary wording, and the background information and the inventory was moved to the appendix. And again, new policies were drafted based on state guidance and changes in state law since the last periodic update 10 years ago. So when you look through it, did you find that the policies were feasible for Roy? Any that are not? Are there any local issues that are not yet addressed by the goals and policies? Do you have any questions about the information that was provided? Do you think that the goals and policies correspond well to the vision statement?
I don't have any.
I think so, because there was a lot about preserving, what we have. Is being mindful of preserving that, so that's good. That was definitely spelled out really well with Muck Creek and, getting, jurisdictions, I think they call them, around us to collaborate and work on that. I know that takes time and it may already be, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I like that was all included. I think it's spelled out really well.
Great. And then we're compiling all comments, so those that could be related to parks and recreation facilities that were brought up at the last meeting. We'll make sure to address those consistently throughout.
No questions for me?
Not me either. It's well articulated.
Oh, good. And again, if anything comes up over the next month and you want to bring it up at the next meeting, you are welcome and encouraged to do so. So that was it for review of the elements. At the April meeting, we will review the transportation, capital, facilities, and utilities elements. In May, we hope to have a public hearing and make recommendation to City Council. But I think these are anticipated. The details are being worked out. And then we hope to be able to take to City Council in June. And I think at the last meeting, I had mentioned that it was a December 2024 deadline. And that is the, for all cities within Pierce County, King County, Snohomish County, that is the general deadline. But I know the anticipated goal is June for the city of Roy. So I was mistaken when I said it December at the last meeting, but June is our goal. Do you all have any questions or closing remarks before we wrap this up?
No, I appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
Can
for
we
your
just
time
dive
and
into a little bit
your
as to
due
why
diligence.
June is our deadline?
I'm sorry?
I just wanted to reiterate that this is Mayor Ivy, sorry. Goal is our estimated goal deadline due to the fact that we have a grant that is helping us fund this comprehensive plan change and update. So there are reasons behind why this date was set for June, and that regards the funding for it. So keep that in mind.
And we are on track with the planning commission meetings.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I should have mentioned it before, but I'm joining you from a small town in northern Minnesota tonight. This is where my family is from, and it's a community that's not, I don't think it's larger than Roy, but it's nice to be able to come here and stay with family while also being able to keep up with work while I'm away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And so
Abby.
I will, yep, and I will see you at the next meeting, and thank you for hearing us out tonight.
Okay, have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Perfect. You did. I wrote it down. We could do it right now.
Shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Nevatt forgot the Pledge of Allegiance, so would we all stand?
This is not run a business.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can you not go remember this? I've said it.
Number 7 is old business. Okay, the Planning Commission procedure rules review and approval. Board appointed will be at 4/8/24. A council meeting, but we currently cannot vote on that.
Ideally, yes. Ideally, we'll present you the potential commissioners to council that day. But there's some things we gotta navigate first. That's the goal. Hopefully before adopting, that's the goal. But I really appreciate you sitting here in interim.
Number 8, go to the order. Do we have any planned absences coming up? I think through June. I know summer will come, so we can at least through June because of the comprehensive plan. We're good. Do we have any report on council meeting minutes? Or council meetings, any report on that?
We didn't have them last month, so for this month.
Suggestions or ideas to garner new members. We have 2 new members waiting on that. And then goals for 2024 for the Planning Commission. I think the first goal is accomplishing the comprehensive plan and getting that ready for May and then onto the council in June. Do you guys have any other ideas, thoughts, opinions?
In addition to what we discussed previously, because those are on the back.
Yeah, the
The Main Street American Town.
It's funding, the town that we moved from had it and, it was, the purpose is to preserve, just the same goal of this whole comprehensive, to preserve what we have, but also progress. And it comes with a lot of funding, grant funding. So it's just something that we could look into down the road as an idea. And part of that is recognizing historical sites too.
Any ideas or suggestions to garner new businesses in Roy?
Where, maybe this is, I only see a couple of storefronts open. And are there other locations or would this be, if people came with a business, they would have to build the building? I know Varsity took over one.
Mhm.
There's a couple here.
Realistically, I mean, there are a couple of options. If you can find an area to build, that's one option. Taking over a business that's vacant is also another option. We also are gonna potentially start working with city council in looking at bringing food trucks into town, but again, there's a lot of code changes and things like that we'd have to review, so that's kind of in the works. But when it comes to business opportunities, it's kind of what you can make of it. You can also, I mean, when it comes to home, you can do home occupation businesses. So people, and that might be happening and they're kind of under our nose unknowingly. But that's an option, is people opening businesses in their homes, obviously depending on if they meet certain code needs and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of a matter of, there's a lot of gears that have to turn for things to happen. If we ever one day acquire the BNSF property, that's a good opportunity for new businesses to spring up. So yeah, there's a bunch of, just gotta kind of find the gold in the city to start something like
It
that.
feels like there's some.
There are.
There's the water issue
Mhm.
to accommodate 100 new dwellings.
Mhm.
There's BNSF property that I know is being worked on.
And
Trying to acquire that. There's just, I feel like it's a symphony and everything eventually will come together, but in the meantime, to keep us chugging along, I think
Yeah.
this is.
And I 100% agree. Some things to keep in mind too, when you guys are going through this, you know, if somebody grabs that development, something to keep in mind is when they come to purchase and start development, you guys can require certain things, you can ask certain things. One of those could be a playground for the development. One of those things could be that they buy into the water infrastructure. And those are things that you guys can require when those kind of things come up. So mhm. Yeah, there have been developers who have come through and tried to purchase land before who have offered $1 million towards the infrastructure and things like that. Did those people end up developing? No, but I mean, those are things that you can definitely request, like, hey, we need, if we're gonna be adding this many. And there's
Absolutely, you can bring the well.
Yeah.
there's things like, and we haven't done it here, but it's an option. You could do an LID or local improvement district. So basically when people create a housing development, it kind of looks, it doesn't always look great, but you can tack on to someone's mortgage when they're purchasing the home. You can tack on what's called an LID, and those would go to improve the district that they're developing, that they're living in. So those monies that would be part of their paid mortgage, or they can pay it up front or in the back end, those monies go towards developing, like making the city better. So for example, a sister city here has done one, and it went to improve water infrastructure. So it was like an extra, I think, $2,500 per new built home that was tacked on. And those people can either pay that up front or in the back end, or, you know, along with their mortgage. And that money just comes through every month and goes into an LID fund for the city. And that's, the city then uses that money. They would move it to capital, and that capital would pay for infrastructure.
That is similar to in Southern California when they were building these huge developments and putting elementary schools in. You had to pay Mello-Reese taxes, and that was attached right to your mortgage or your property taxes to help fund the elementary
And
school.
there's that too, 100 new, I mean, this 20 years, but won't the school need to, it being made bigger, I mean.
Well, and that's taken into account with the study. I think we mentioned it last
It
meeting
is,
too,
okay.
that, you know, the potential for, like, say that housing development that was gonna go in towards the tail end of town between the two developments. They were gonna have basically a study funded through Bethel School District, or to Bethel School District.
Mhm.
Because they came in and talked at I think it might have been a planning commission meeting or a city council meeting or something. The developers came and spoke, and they discussed it and the impact that it would have on a school district. And, you know, there are studies that they have to do
Yeah.
when doing.
Exactly. Those are definitely things that they take into account when developing. And who knows, down the road, there may be a potential for a high school or middle school here. I know that, you know,
Young's got 9.
Gene feels like, but yes, as the city gets bigger, I mean, obviously we have to grow with it, in whatever format that looks like, so.
It's pretty businesses, I was just curious about.
We had one discussion in the last year about the mercantile here. That's just kind of sitting like, not really doing much.
Their general store.
They're the general store, yeah, and Mayor Ivy, we had some discussion about some ideas for that, but.
Yeah.
So the owners currently, and, you know, trying to revitalize that.
I believe that's for sale right now.
Oh, is it for sale right now?
I'm pretty sure there's like 90% of the
I
businesses on
think
this strip.
everything except for the bar, pretty much is for sale right now.
It's more or less too, like, what if there's something that you want to see. I know that, you know, it's hit and miss with people, but people have been interested in cannabis. And if that's something that, you know, obviously is a revenue generator, if that's something that you're interested in seeing, then there's code that has to be changed for that, obviously. But nothing is impossible if it's something that you put your, you know, feet to the pavement for. You may have to jump through a lot of hoops for it, but I mean, any idea is better than just letting those buildings sit vacant. So,
Would we have the closing support for something like that? Because if you watch TV every night, they're all get broken into and.
Normally this isn't time for public comment,
Oh,
but,
okay, sorry.
no,
No.
but again, obviously with the growth of the city, we'd have to review those kind of things. But again, when you have new businesses come in, that opens the door for business and occupation taxes. So that business would be paying into the city would then look at and see, okay, is public safe, and again, the planning commission would kind of take their feet off the pedal on that one, and that would become a council issue where is public safety a priority to council? And if public safety is, then council would say, okay, when we review the budget, we need to allocate X amount of dollars to public safety, whether that be hiring a new officer, do we have the funds for said new officer, what does that look like? But that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, that's,
But yes.
fine with me, I was just worried.
Do we have any upcoming agenda items to be added for next time?
Not that I know of. BHC, I don't know if BHC is gonna do another presentation. They may have a final presentation. And then just so you guys are aware, like I suggested, I don't know if they'll fall for this, but I would honestly suggest a special meeting for you guys for your public hearing versus for council, only because of the way that your meetings are, first of all, structured, because if you're doing a special meeting for it, it literally just has to be that, and then you can call it a day. Well, and you don't cost money.
Meeting for what?
For the public hearing for the comp plan. So that
To not include it in a council meeting.
well, council has to have their own, but you guys have to have one first. So
We have to have a public,
you have to have a public
planning
hearing.
commission, a special planning commission public hearing.
Yes, so, but you guys have to go first, because you'll have your public hearing, you'll hear from the community, and then you take that to council and they have a public hearing.
Before June.
Yes,
Right.
but like I said, the way that the meetings are structured, where you guys' meetings after council, it gets a little wonky, because if you did your public meeting at, like, say, April's meeting potentially, then council's already had theirs, so they wouldn't have their public hearing until May, which is still fine and falls within the parameters, but if, say, you guys had your public hearing mid-April, and then, yeah, so they're still working out logistics of it, but that's what I would suggest, is having, like, basically put you guys before council and then having councils.
Yeah, so we'd have to do ours in April.
Ideally, but again, I'm
There's
working.
May, because we want to adopt this in June.
That's what we're working out the logistics, and so just stay tuned in your email to kind of see what that looks like. But yes,
And a question about that, will council be specifically made aware of the urgency of this timeline when they consider their appointments? I'd like a reiteration to them, but I'm just wondering.
okay, one more time.
I don't know if I asked that right. Because this is seemingly an urgent timeline, will it be reiterated to them that this is an urgent timeline? We have a June deadline if we need to do this
It'll be reiterated.
before their appointment consideration. Okay, I'm just asking.
And it'll be, there's a lot of things that council needs to address prior to this. So they all of them fall within a matter of importance. And I know the mayor is working with council to try to get those addressed in a timely manner. Again, like, that is at the discretion of council and the mayor. So we will just wait and see how that moves forward. But yeah, we're fully aware of the importance of meeting full council, importance of meeting meeting deadlines. So just we're cognizant of it.
Sure, I was putting it on public records.
Gotcha.
So,
Well, if we have nothing further to discuss, I would like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, sure.
What's going on?
Thank you, Commissioners.
I don't think that.
Thank you.
Public records.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night. I don't want them. Keep them unless I ask for a public record on them. I think they're fine. Okay, bye.
Yeah, I remember that now, Commissioner Dunn.